So tuners like these are probably the easiest way to make a bunch of power on your 09 to 16 F150 without actually turning any wrenches, right? But there are a few tuner options available, and you should be checking out the LiveWire TS Plus from SCT if you want a full screen touchscreen tuner with all the bells and whistles. I'm talking about the ability to data log, monitor things in real time with gauges, read and clear trouble codes, and tune your truck with a preloaded tune or in a speed shop on a dyno holding up to 10 custom tunes. Now, if you're curious what kind of gains you can get out of the LiveWire with just a basic preloaded tune, take a look at our dyno graphs. We went ahead and we ran our truck on the dyno bone stock, and we made 280 horsepower and 305 pound-feet of torque. We then installed the 91 octane tune from the LiveWire TS Plus, and we ended up making 290 horsepower and 314 pound-feet of torque, which makes for peak gains of 10 horsepower and 9 pound-feet of torque. But if you take a second look at that graph, you'll see some pretty nice curve gains relatively low on the RPM band. We actually saw curve gains topping out at 18 additional horsepower and 30 additional pound-feet of torque, which is awesome because those curve gains are what you're going to feel when you're driving around on the streets. And again, plenty of other cool features with the LiveWire. You can read and clear those trouble codes, so it saves you a little bit of cash as opposed to having to go to the dealership or the shop down the street just so they can plug in their own scanner. Now, using the tuner is very straightforward. It is a very user-friendly device. It shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes to set it up and tune your truck, but I'll walk you guys through all the functions and features in just a moment. So using the LiveWire is pretty straightforward. You want to set up your windshield mount and then plug the data cable into the unit itself. Obviously, the HDMI end goes into the HDMI port on the back, and the OBD2 cable goes underneath the steering column. All right, so once you got the LiveWire plugged in, go ahead and mount it on your windshield, and then you want to put your key in the ignition and turn it to the on position. Once you do so, it's going to bring you to the home screen for the LiveWire TS Plus, and I'm going to show you guys all the other features, but obviously we're all here to see how much power we can make with this thing, right? So you want to select Program Vehicle. That's going to bring you to your tuning options. It's going to give you a street use notice. It's just a legal disclaimer. You can ignore that and click Continue. Now, once the tuner has processed some information in the ECU, it's going to bring you to the home page for programming your vehicle. And as you can see, we have our available preloaded tune for our 5-liter, and we see our custom tune option there. That would only display any custom tune files that you would have installed previously or downloaded wirelessly. Now, we just want to see what the LiveWire can do with the preloaded tune, so we're going to select our preloaded tune option. Now at this point, it's going to begin pulling information from the ECU, and it's very important that you do not unplug the tuner and that you do not turn your key to the off position, because if you do so during the tuning process, you could cause an error, in which case you might not be able to turn your truck over and you might have to have it flashed by the dealership, so we want to avoid that obviously. Now once you've selected the preloaded tune option, it's going to bring you to this screen here. This screen allows you to make changes to the preloaded tune file depending on certain engine parameters. You only want to make changes to some of the parameters in here if you really know what you're doing, because this will allow you to change things like your shift points, and you might actually be able to change things like your air and fuel mixture, but if you make unsafe changes to that, you could cause physical damage to your motor. We're only interested in seeing what the preloaded tune can do with a higher octane fuel. We currently have 91 in our tank, so we're going to update our octane rating from 87 to 91. We're going to leave everything else the same, and we're going to approve our tune. Now it's going to let you know that there are special options available, and those are just other parameters that you might be able to adjust. Again, we're not interested in that, so click Continue. And this is going to allow you to change any settings depending on your TPMS, your tire pressure monitor system. We're not interested in making any changes to that, so go ahead and click Continue. Now at this point, it's going to ask you to confirm the changes you might have made to the preloaded tune, and you can see right there we have our 91 octane and we have our vehicle description. You can confirm that and click Continue. Now again, it's going to ask you to make sure your key is in the on position during this process, and at this point the tuner will actually begin uploading the file to the ECU. Again, you don't want to unplug the device at any point in time. You also want to make sure you don't turn your key to the off position. Now once the tune is finished installing, it'll clear any diagnostic trouble codes that might have been falsely triggered. It's going to give you this nice little screen saying that your download is complete. Go ahead and turn the key off and select Done on the tuner. And that's it. That's all you need to do to tune your truck. Now, if you want to stick around, I'll show you guys the other features of the LiveWire TS Plus. Something cool that you can do with this device is you can monitor your engine's performance and certain parameters in real time using the gauges and data log function. Now, when you enter the gauges and data logging screen, again, you want to make sure your key's in the on position, and then it's going to bring you to this configuration screen. You want to make sure that you select the correct vehicle. We're working with our 2013 F150, obviously, so we want to select Ford Gas 08 or newer. Now, once the device has connected with the ECU again and it has built a data log file, it's going to let you know that there are a couple ways you can interact with the gauges in the data log screen. Obviously, tapping the screen once will bring down the drop-down menu, and double tapping on the screen will allow you to edit those gauges. Now, once you've selected the correct vehicle configuration, it's going to bring you to the default gauge menu. And again, if you want to begin recording a data log file, select the screen once, and it's going to give you this record option. That'll begin recording all your engine's parameters, and you can review that file at a later time. You'll need to pull that file off of the LiveWire. That's very useful if you want to troubleshoot anything with your truck or if you're custom tuning your truck. But at any rate, I'll show you guys how to make some changes to the gauge screen here. So we're going to single tap our screen, and we're going to select layout. Now this is the default layout here. You can see we have one tachometer style gauge and we have two digital gauges. If you want to display that information with different values or different configurations, you can scroll through the different layout options. You can see you can do purely digital gauges, you can also do graphs, and there are a ton of other options that you can do in here. We're going to select all of our digital gauges. Simply select it once, it's going to process, and it's going to pull up all the available gauges that you can see here. Now you can see on this digital gauge here, we're currently monitoring our voltage, and you can also see things like our coolant temp and the intake air temperature. If you want to make any changes to any of these, go ahead and double tap each one. That's going to bring up the item that you can monitor, and you can change that. We'll change that from our voltage to a different value. Select RPM just for fun. And you can change the unit that it will be displayed. Now obviously engine speed only has one unit, and that's revolutions per minute, but depending on the item it will give different options, for example Fahrenheit or Celsius if you're monitoring temperatures. And you can also change the range on those gauges from minimum to maximum values. Again, that'll depend on what gauge you're actually monitoring. But at any rate, to simply change the gauge itself, again select item and then select approve. And now you can see here we have our RPM gauge displaying in a numeric value. Obviously that will match the engine speed tachometer on your dash. Now there are too many different parameters for us to review currently, but at any rate, if you wanted to take your time, you could select each gauge again and you could go through the items and you could see all the different parameters that you could monitor, anything ranging from voltages to your airman fuel mixtures to your short and long-term fuel trims, and the list goes on. Now, if you want to get out of the gauge screen, really simple, go ahead and tap once and select exit. Now, another cool thing the LiveWire does is it allows you to benchmark your truck in real time while you're driving around. And to do that, you want to select performance tests. Now, there are a couple of performance tests you can do. You can record your 0 to 60 time. You can also record your quarter-mile time. You can even record your braking distance down to a complete stop. Now, we are sitting in our dyno currently, and we cannot currently use any of those. But if you wanted to begin any of the tests, you would select the appropriate one and click continue. It's going to ask you to put your key in the on position again, and it's going to walk you through the different steps that you have to take in order to perform one of the performance tests. Now, it's going to ask you to select your vehicle weight in gross pounds. Obviously, that's going to stay stock for now, but we're going to select approve just for fun, and you can see you have all the options here and all the instructions to tell you how to conduct each of those performance tests. Now, once you've gone through the options and the instructions here, it's going to bring you to the actual performance test screen. And when you're ready to mash the pedal, you simply select start, and it will begin recording your time, and it will record the values depending on which performance test you have selected. If you want to exit the test screen, go ahead and select exit. Now, another cool thing the LiveWire can do is it can actually read and clear your diagnostic trouble codes, more commonly known as check engine lights. In order to do that, you want to select this little medical symbol here for vehicle functions. It's going to bring you to the Vehicle Functions home screen, and the two options we're concerned with is reading and clearing our diagnostic trouble codes. Now, under Special Functions, you have two options called Cam Reset and Crank Relearn. Do not bother with those. You're only going to be using those if you're doing some advanced work to your motor, and honestly, in the end, it'll probably be the speed shop you're working with actually using these special functions, so simply ignore those for now. I'll show you guys how to read those diagnostic trouble codes first. Pretty straightforward, simply select that option. Again, make sure your key is in the on position, and once it is in the on position, the LiveWire will automatically scan your ECU and it'll display any of the diagnostic trouble codes that you might have. Now, currently our truck does not have any codes, so it has nothing to display, but if it did have any codes, it would display it on that screen. And if you want to turn off your check engine light, again, pretty straightforward, go ahead and select Clear DTC Codes, and it's going to ask you to turn your key on, and it's going to clear those codes. Now, keep in mind, if you don't actually fix the underlying issue, those codes will probably reappear, and you will probably get that check engine light once again. Now, we've covered everything on the first page here. Second page is some more information relating to your vehicle and your tuner. You can easily pull up your vehicle information using this tab here. Again, make sure your key is in the on position before doing so that it can communicate with the ECU appropriately. Now, it's very simple. You can pull up your VIN information. You can also pull up your ECU strategy code and any other information that you might need, especially if you're tuning your truck. And device info is a similar idea here. Some basic hardware and software information. You'll really only need this if you're troubleshooting the device or if you're building custom tune files. And lastly, we have our device settings. You can make some basic changes to the device itself. It's going to give you a little prompt here letting you know you can scroll up and down the list to see the different options. So you can do a couple things. You can change the brightness of the screen during the day as well as at nighttime, so it's not glaring you out when you're trying to see the road. You can also change the theme of the device to different colors, and you can make some other changes, including the ambient light sensor, which will automatically detect the ambient light and change the brightness of the screen depending on how light or dark out it is. You can also turn off the audio if you don't like the little beeping noises that it makes. And you can also disable the ignition key check if you get tired of that prompt popping up. Last thing you can also do is power save mode. You can determine how you want the device to stay on or off depending on the position of the key in the ignition. And you can also change the startup function depending on what you want to see when the device powers up for the first time. You can also disable and enable tutorials and other things like that. But one of the most important features is the factory reset. That is going to completely undo everything you might have done to the tuner itself, and it'll revert it back to its out-of-box condition. Now, the last function of the LiveWire that in my opinion makes it super convenient is the ability to update the device wirelessly. In order to do that, you will need to configure your Wi-Fi and connect to one of your local networks. It'll scan for any Wi-Fi connections, and you can select the connection you want to connect to. It will ask you to input the appropriate password and username if needed. Once you've connected to a Wi-Fi connection, you can select the Check for Updates function. And again, we are not connected currently. It's going to ask you that you have an internet connection, but it'll connect automatically and it'll download any files that you might need in order for the device to be up to date. So as you can see, tuning your truck is very straightforward, only takes a couple minutes, and using all the other functions on the LiveWire are pretty straightforward as you just saw. And that actually wraps up my review of the LiveWire TS Plus tuner from SCT, fitting your 09 to 16 F150. I'm Travis, thanks for watching, and for all things F150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.